What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to ICNV Driversedition, and today we got another hot conversation for you. As you know, the 2027 Grand Sport has come out. There are people on lists waiting to buy cars. Some people have actually ordered their cars. But there's a lot of information out there about the Grand Sport from our favorite YouTubers to engineers and so forth. I think it's time we analyze the key information to help you decide, if you haven't purchased the vehicle already, if the Grand Sport is the right purchase for you. So don't make a purchase of a Grand Sport until you watch this video. All right, the 2027 Grand Sport has hit the streets. I must admit, it is an amazing looking vehicle, but it looks a lot similar to cars we've already seen brought out by the C8 generation. But with that said, the car has next level performance. We got 535 horsepower with 520 pound-feet of torque. We have next generation technology, which helps with the traction management, like on the ZR1 and the ZR1X. And we have amazing looks and styling because it looks like our favorite wide body vehicles that we have seen so much in the C8 platform. But the real conversation we have to have when it comes to buying a Grand Sport is, why are you buying the car? I feel like that's the biggest point that most people overlook when they decide to purchase a C8. At this point, a lot of people just buy what's next or the biggest hype vehicle, but never really understanding what the car is actually built for, designed for, and if it actually fits their driving needs. So let's talk about that. The key factors many people focus on when they're typically buying a performance car is the performance, the technology inside of it, the looks and styling, and affordability. So when we start looking at the new Grand Sport, let's talk about the performance. Historically, the Grand Sport has always been the best track-capable car of the low-end performance engine. But for the C8 generation, that has kind of shifted as they've introduced a new engine for the base C8 platform, which I guess still holds over to the same principles. So when you look at the performance of the C8 Grand Sport, the Grand Sport has the same performance capabilities of the base C8, or does it? When you actually talk about straight line performance, the base C8 actually may be quicker, and that's something that has actually been stated by Corey from Paragon Performance. So when you think about it, the Grand Sport is actually heavier than the base C8. You get a little bit more technology when it comes to traction management for slippage when you actually launch the car, but overall, you have the same engine, you have the same transmission. When you're looking at straight line performance, the base C8 has less weight and actually may be just a tad quicker. And we've seen that for some comparisons so far. So when it comes to the Grand Sport, considering the base C8 with the same powertrain, you really can't say performance is the edge. But then I know your response is, well, the Grand Sport is actually a better track capable car than the base C8. But what we're actually realizing now, and I'll say this to you from my personal experience, when I owned my 6.2 liter C8, I took my car to the track maybe a total of 5 times. I've watched many people track their base 6.2 liter C8s, and even Rick Cunnings went out and had some fun. And the one thing I would sit there and say to you, which is a key point to me, is I never ever recall anybody saying that the base C8 needed more traction. We always sat there and said it would be fun if the car had more power. And so when you look at it from that perspective, the Z51 package car on the base C8 platform may actually perform better than the non-Z52 track performance version of a Grand Sport, because it's lighter, quicker, and like I said before, traction has never really been the problem on a base C8. When you step up to the Grand Sport, you do get a little more driving comfortability standard, and you get a wider body, and you get bigger wheels. But like I stated once before, traction has never been the actual issue. But once you throw in the Z52 track package, which there aren't a lot of cars on the market space today, so that comparison hasn't been made in any video I've actually seen. But what I have seen is conversations with engineers addressing the base C8 with the Z51 package and the Grand Sport, where they're saying the performance may overlap on the actual track. And that's becoming a common statement with the Grand Sport, is that the car performance overlaps with multiple different versions of the C8 platform. So when we think about performance compared to an E-Ray or a Z06, which has been a conversation, well, with the E-Ray's all-wheel drive electric hybrid platform, the Grand Sport really can't compete with the launching capabilities of the E-Ray. So straight line performance makes it hard for it to actually be very competitive with the E-Ray. But when you take it to a track, well, the Grand Sport is supposed to perform better. We haven't actually seen any track results yet, at least for anybody, but that was a conversation again by the engineers stating that the Grand Sport will have overlapping track capabilities with the E-Ray. But I'm guessing with the Z52 package, there should be some type of advantage given to the Grand Sport over the E-Ray, but we will always have that argument, and I don't know if that's an actual true statement. But then when it comes to the Z06, in straight line performance, the Z06 still outperforms the Grand Sport, and on the track, the Grand Sport actually is very competitive with the Z06, but the Z06 in all actuality should still outperform the Grand Sport. And there will be some locations, again, where their favorite phrase comes out, where the performance overlaps. Now, what I've seen so far is a trend that the Grand Sport really hasn't trumped any version of the C8 that's been out. It just has performance that overlaps, and it does outperform each version of the car at some point at something. Excluding the ZR1 and the ZR1X, the Grand Sport isn't the dominant car at anything, but it can be competitive and compete with any other version of the C8 platform at something. Now, many people don't like to focus on top-end performance, and on top-end performance, the Grand Sport does better than the previous version of the 6.2-liter V8. But like you've heard from Corey from Paragon Performance, is that just like the previous version of the C8, based off all the testing they've done so far, that once you cross 80 miles per hour, there is a drop in performance from the Grand Sport. The difference is it's not the same fall off as it was on the previous version of the 6.2-liter V8 pushing the Corvette platform. So when you think about it from that perspective, the Grand Sport does pull harder and longer than the previous version of the C8, but there is still a performance drop off on the car, which in essence doesn't make it outperform the E-Ray or the Z06 at achieving higher top end speed. Now, I know that's going to kind of create an argument or confusion among some of you guys, because you see the Grand Sport is supposed to do 200 miles per hour, where the Z06 is tapping out somewhere around 197 or 196. But in essence, what that actually means is that the Z06 will get to its 197 miles per hour a lot quicker than the Grand Sport will ever get to its 200 miles per hour. But the Grand Sport is capable of actually getting there. It's just the amount of time that it takes to get there will definitely be longer than the Z06. But one thing I can say about the new powertrain of the Grand Sport and the base C8 is that the LS6, the 6.7-liter V8, is actually more mod friendly than the Z06. So at the end of the day, if you're looking for a car that you can mod and get more performance out of, then the Grand Sport or the base C8 for 2027 may be the car you want to target. Now, the next thing people like to talk about is that next generation technology. And again, I want to refer to the traction management system, the PTM Pro control system, which everyone is talking about like it's the next best thing since sliced bread. I have to laugh at that. But what I will sit there and say is the next generation technology does give the Grand Sport a slight competitive edge, which helps make it compete with the E-Ray and the Z06 from previous versions of the C8 platform. And I say that because they've taken all the information they learned from the E-Ray, the Z06, the ZR1, and the ZR1X, and placed it inside the Grand Sport, which actually helps it manage traction on launch and deliver more power in key points where it can be used to maximize the performance the car can actually offer. Now, another benefit of the technology is it really shows up when you're actually tracking the vehicles. So the new technology on the Grand Sport actually has been stated over and over again that it makes the driving of the Grand Sport on the track feel more comfortable and more manageable. And that's key because with this new technology, it makes taking turns at higher speeds and accelerating out of them quicker feel more comfortable and convenient for the average driver compared to a C8 Z06. So the Grand Sport doesn't really push your driving limits or challenging your driving limitations as much as the C8 Z06, which makes it more fun to track and allows people to get better times. And when compared to the Z06, which will challenge actual drivers' driving limitations and their tracking ability, it helps people get overlapping performance on the track when compared to a C8 Z06. But with that next generation technology also comes the same active fuel management system. Yes, the cylinder deactivation that many people have grown to hate. And what we've actually heard from several of our favorite YouTubers, including Brink of Speed, is that the active fuel management system engages a lot quicker and a lot more intrusive than on previous versions of the C8 platform. So the next generation, or should I say the next technological advance of that system, is actually more intrusive and interrupts your driving experience way more than any previous version of the C8 platform. Now, I do understand that if I'm not mistaken, if you set it up in Z mode or you drive in track performance, you can eliminate the intrusiveness or the activation of this system. But let me ask you, how many people want to drive using the paddles all day long or engaging in hard shifts on their normal commute just to avoid the deactivation of the cylinders? So all technological advances aren't great technological advances, especially on performance cars. Now, when we get into the looks and styling of the Grand Sport, this is where a lot of people fall in love with the car because it shares the same look of the C8 E-Ray and the C8 Z06, which ultimately means you're getting the base model performance with the same styling of a Z06, which for many people, that has always been the goal. They want the wider body stance and the looks of a Z06 without paying that hefty Z06 price tag or being forced to maintain a flat plane crank engine, which many people fear. Yes, you heard me correctly. Many people fear long-term maintenance on a flat plane crank engine because historically, that has not been a really reliable engine by any means. So at this point, it's fun to own one for a short stint. But when you think about long-term ownership costs, a lot of people will avoid the Z06 strictly for that flat plane crank engine. But like I stated before, the Grand Sport allows you to get that same look, including with the Z52 track package, which many people adore. And although it's the heaviest constraint option out there today, they say it's the most sought after package on the car with every person's bill. And a lot of people had to sacrifice it to just get a car. So I guess at the end of the day, GM did an amazing styling design with the Z06, or maybe it's just people want to look like the Z06 in the long run. But either way, the Grand Sport has that desired look that turns heads and can make people take a second glance. So I can understand why, when it comes to ownership, people desire to own it. The last thing I want to discuss is affordability. And this is truly the biggest influential factor when it comes to buying a Grand Sport. The entry-level cost of a Grand Sport is very affordable. The Grand Sport makes it affordable to get into the wide-body game and have a nice performing car based off the powertrain added to the new C8 platform. But the Grand Sport also can become a very pricey car too, because the options on the Grand Sport are plentiful. Actually, it's the car with the most options to date. Now, don't get me wrong, a lot of those options are options that you can actually mimic off the E-Ray platform, off the Z06 platform, and in some cases off the ZR1 platform. So when you see these options, it's not so much that the Grand Sport has specific options that you can't get on another car, What the Grand Sport actually has is or wider options that you can get from other cars. Does it make sense? I guess the biggest example I can say to you is with the Grand Sport, you can get the Grand Sport unique styling wheels. They're not offered on the Z06. But you can also get the E-Ray wheels, which were not offered on the Z06. So then you can get the Z06 style wheels, which are offered on the Z06, and you can get carbon fiber wheels, which are offered on the Z06, the E-Ray, the ZR1, and so forth. So just in wheel selections alone, they have 2 extra options for wheels that every other car does not have. And that's why you can get the Grand Sport as a more customizable vehicle. But with those customizations come actual costs. And so a Grand Sport can cost you anywhere from $88,000 all the way up to $150,000. You heard me correctly, $150,000. And we're talking about MSRP pricing with actual no markups. So when you look at it from that point of view, I have to ask myself, is the Grand Sport really the affordable bang for your buck car that many people project it out to be? And what we start to realize is that comment is based off limited options, or as they say, the as you need or what you need options. And so in essence, what I've come to realize is the Grand Sport, nicely equipped, can become a very price heavy car. But if you get the Grand Sport with the basic equipment that you need to enjoy an everyday car, it falls into the entry level price of a Z06. And for a lot of people, let's just be honest, when you look at new E-Rays on the market space 2026 with discounts, you can get a more equipped E-Ray for the same price as an MSRP Grand Sport. You can get a more equipped Z06 for the same price of a mildly equipped Grand Sport. So you have to actually understand that affordability is a false concept that really does not exist with the Grand Sport, but based off the entry cost, a lot of people think it carries throughout the whole lineup, and it doesn't. So like I stated to you earlier in this video, before you buy a Grand Sport, you may want to weigh your options and think about how much each one of these aspects of owning a car really matters to you, and then decide that if it's about performance, you can get some higher performing cars with some nice price savings and discounts if you buy one a model year older. The next generation technology is a nice option, and I can see where it has some benefit in certain things or certain aspects of owning your car. But at the same time, there may be some withdrawals and holdbacks that make some people not like it, and it may not really be the thing that you desire to deal with on a daily basis. And the styling of the car, yes, the looks and styling, you can get that same look from an E-Ray or a Z06. So the question has to be, if you're truly just focusing on the looks of the car and trying to build you a nice car for less money, where affordability comes in, then maybe a heavily discounted C8 Z06 or a heavily discounted C8 E-Ray may be a better option. If you like options, you can get other cars with more equipment. If you don't care about options and you just want that new platform, then I understand your purchase reasons. But either way it goes, I just wanted you to have the most information and be well equipped when it comes to making your purchase. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Let me know which route you want to go, and let me know why you decide to pick up your Grand Sport, or if you decide to go another direction, what was the driving force? ICNV Driversedition. Go ahead, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, join the ICNV Driversedition community. We are an interactive community, which means if you hit me up on any one of my social media platforms or in the comments below, I'll do my best to respond, and the topic you bring up is interesting enough, I may even shoot a video on it. But don't forget, we were all made in his image and given dominion over the world, which means we weren't just meant to be. So chase your dreams, build your visions, never ever give up, and embrace your own identity. We were all given unique gifts to become the best versions of us that we can possibly be. So step into your calling and become the blessing to the world that you were meant to be. Remember, you can be the one and not the one at the same time, because it's okay to be unique. Just remember to stay humble, stay focused, and stay blessed. And I'll see you in these streets. Peace.